All right, welcome to my first ever deep dive on UFOs. First song on my EP, Astronauts and Aliens. It's kind of a general topic song. Good way to start it all. It was general topic. A lot of the first song here leans into kind of my beginning of what you would call UFO sickness, right? UFO sickness is whenever you either see a UFO or you just get privy to some information that just sticks right in here, right in your skull. And you can't let it go after that, right? You just keep looking and searching and researching, and it, it overwhelms a lot of people. It really does. It becomes people's lives. And I'm not going to lie, it definitely overtook mine by by a large margin. No regrets. No regrets. It's the greatest story nobody's telling, or everybody's telling, but it's 2023 and nobody listens. I don't know which it is, but I think the vast majority of people believe at least in the possibility, right? There's not a lot of people out there saying, impossible, not a thing, no aliens, no UFOs, none of that. Everybody's at least, the majority of people are in the camp of, yeah, maybe, it's a giant universe. Well, I can safely say after a very, very deep dive over the last couple of years, UFOs are real. I can't tell you what they are. I wish I could. Maybe by the end of this, I'll give you all some of my theories by the end of all my videos I make, and by the end of this EP here, I do have theories. But everybody has theories, so you got to take them anecdotally with a grain of salt. There's a lot of information. Common misconception: UFOs. We need data. You keep hearing different. You hear different journalists. You hear different Congress people and stuff saying we need to collect data. We need data. Wrong. We are over-indexed on data. We are under-indexed on theory. So what I'm trying to say here is that we have data out the wazoo. This is nothing new. We've been collecting data since the 40s, maybe sooner. Information regarding the UFO stuff has been in the ether since ancient times. I mean, not to get all crazy haired, History Channel guy, but he's not wrong. He's weird, but he's not wrong. He might twist one too many things into it's aliens, but the overall premise is very, very, very based in fact. I mean, you can go all over the world. You can go through all sorts of archaeology, all sorts of historical scriptures and such, and you'll find the leads. You don't have to look hard. Every religion, every historical culture, I mean, it exists somewhere in the lore. It might not say space aliens, but you'll find the parallels. They're there. It doesn't take a big stretch to reach them either. I mean, you just look and you're like, all right, if I was alive in 2500 BC and I didn't know what to call any of this stuff, that's what I would call it, I guess, because a chariot on fire in the sky makes a lot more sense to me right now. Yeah, I mean, it actually kind of ties into, I guess, the overall point here of this first track, Astronauts and Aliens. It's largely based on a big part of my adventure started with Tom DeLonge. I'm a music guy. I love music. Tom DeLonge's a music guy, obviously, one of the best. Those long tours in all the downtime, he spent his time doing the UFO sickness, doing the research, doing the deep dive. And with his money, his resources, his popularity, his cool factor, whatever it is, the combination of those things, Tom DeLonge ended up being a huge player in the game of UFO disclosure here. He found a lot of great information. He had access to a lot of people in higher positions. the paths he took to get there are kind of crazy, and it almost sounds like it's stranger than fiction, my friends. But Tom DeLonge ended up writing some books. He wrote in collaboration. He didn't do them alone. A.J. Hartley, I believe, was his author. I think if I remember correctly, I watched some videos, and for the most part, Tom was shaping the content, but he never really I don't know that he considers himself like a graphic or like a novel writer or anything like that. You know, he's not like that kind of writer necessarily. So A.J. Hartley, being an actual author, making a career of it, he helped Tom put those concepts into real words, into a real format, into something that was super actually enjoyable to read. It's two different parts. You have your God's Man in War, which is all it's pretty much it's facts, you know. It's history, it's theology, it's psychology, it's a lot of things, and it's interesting. Mostly, it's just interesting. And then to go along with that, he made a couple fiction books called Chasing Shadows. The point of the fiction books were to kind of give you the information that Tom had discovered throughout his research, but not the information is factual, but it's presented in a fictional narrative, so it's enjoyable to read while discovering the potentials of this reality of the whole UFO conspiracy. UAPs now. UFO is more fun to say, we all agree, but UAP is the better term, I guess. Unidentifiable anomalous phenomena. Makes sense because they're not just flying. And I don't even know if you could classify what they're doing as flying. They're just moving through space-time, it seems. Anywhere they want, at the speed they want. We'll get into that with some of the case studies that some of my other songs talk about. Astronauts and aliens. You'll find that the lyrics are a little bizarre. I kind of did that on purpose. The whole subject's bizarre. And you have to embrace the absurdity of UFOs and the events around them if you want to get the real story. I know it's hard. I know it's hard whenever you hear silly stories that fit into the lore. But if you don't count them in, then you're not giving yourself the full story. I think the overall point I took from the Tom DeLonge books is I think he was... I could be wrong. It's my opinion, my take on the books. But it seems to me that he's trying to lay out the theory that we as a civilization, as a human civilization, are a cargo cult. When people see something they don't understand, they sometimes emulate it and build a religion around it. We have evidence of it in modern times of during the World Wars. We used the islands in the South Pacific when we were fighting in that theater. We used the islands in the South Pacific to build little war camps and stuff. And we would trade with the locals because they knew the lay of the land, and we had shit they didn't have. So it was a good, fair trade-off. And those people didn't understand what the hell was happening. They just knew that these people showed up in these planes, and they didn't even know what a fucking plane was. But these people showed up, and they had better stuff than them. And they in the tribal cultures, they often, like in this one especially, I don't know about all of them. I think it's probably pretty commonplace, but tribes have like a big man, little man setup, right? So big man is the guy who can bring in all the resources for the tribe. Little man can't bring in shit. So if you can bring in the most resources for your tribe, you get big man status, and that makes you important. The gods like you better than the others. It's just all part of the system, right? So whenever these people come in their planes, these military people during the World Wars, and they have all this stuff, and suddenly the tribes think, well, these people are blessed by gods because they have all these, the gods gave them all these things, and they didn't give me these things. And suddenly their world is upended, right? They're like, I thought I was a big man, but I'm not. I'm a small man. These guys are the big men. They're coming in there. They have all their stuff, and they're better than me. So then the world wars end, and they just disappear. They're gone. And all these tribes are left sitting in these South Pacific islands like, they were here, they had all this stuff, and now they're gone. We did something wrong. I don't know. But they start emulating then. They start trying to appease the gods. So they start trying to act like the other big men they know. And they start building these fake runways for airports. And they build these, fake control towers to run the airport, because that's what the military guys had. And they're out there and they're like trying to wave in planes on their runways, their homemade runways, because that's what the gods would want. And they build headphones out of like coconuts and shit. That is a good modern day example of a cargo cult. And civilization might just be that, a cargo cult. We're emulating something we've seen, something that came from the skies, that had better shit than us, and then left. All right, so let's talk about the modern UFO era some. The modern UFO era, it starts with we'll say the Kenneth Arnold story. I think that's what I would call the beginning of the modern UFO era. The Kenneth Arnold story, he was a pilot, and I believe if I remember correctly, I think the one of the branches of military had lost something in the mountains, right? And I don't know if it was like a plane went down or something. I don't know, but there was a reward, I'm pretty sure, if you could help them, find where the hell it was. And Kenneth Arnold was already gonna be out flying anyways. I don't think he was out because of that, but he flew around the area that it potentially could have been. Just if you're gonna be out flying, you might as well fly in the area that might get you a reward. But Kenneth Arnold ended up seeing a lot more that day. He ended up seeing the world's very first flying saucer.
So I was approximately 25 to 28 miles from Mount Rainier, and I noticed to the left of me a chain which looked to me like the tail of a Chinese kite. They seemed to flip and flash in the sun just like a mirror. I kept looking for their tails. They didn't have any tails. They didn't fly in the conventional formation that's taught in our Army. They seemed to kind of weave in and out right above the mountaintops. And the best calculation I could figure out, now even in spite of error, would be around 1,200 miles an hour. And to my knowledge, there isn't anything that I read about outside of some of the German rockets that would go that fast.
It's the first one that a pilot had come back reporting, and very adamantly, mind you. I mean, Kenneth Arnold said he's seen, I believe, 9 flying discs skipping over the mountain ranges like a stone skipping across the water. That's why he, like a saucer, he said like a flying saucer cup, like skipping over the water. It's funny how that one moment changed the vernacular of UFO history. And it was really just you'll see that again in 2004 in the Tic Tac incident where Commander Fravor, he refers to the UFO as a flying Tic Tac, and suddenly the Tic Tac is in our vernacular of UFOs forever. It's an absurd subject, so I mean we might as well use absurd terminology. So Kenneth Arnold, he never gave up on that either. I mean, that's one thing that people don't realize too, is that Kenneth Arnold spent a good chunk of the rest of his life being really interested in paranormal things. And he had other paranormal events, I'm pretty sure, too, that weren't just UFOs after the UFO event. And you'll find, and I'll explain that more as we go through these songs, that paranormal kind of ties in with UFOs, and God, does UFO people not want it to, because it makes it sound that much more hokey. But truth is truth, and you can't you can't stifle it just because it sounds hokey. I mean, we've all grown up with paranormal things, at least in our orbit, right? We've heard the stories. We know somebody who knows something, or we ourselves have experienced something. When I was a teenager, I had my first paranormal experience that I absolutely could not find another solution for besides paranormal. And there were several witnesses around to confirm with me. So that was probably the first thing in my life that woke me up into the idea that maybe everything isn't just so cut and dry. Maybe it actually is a lot cooler. Like maybe it's interesting. Maybe the fallacy is to believe in the mundane. That's where I'm at. The mundane is so boring, especially when the truth really is just so much more interesting. So Kenneth Arnold's paranormal events, I'm not an expert here on this one, but I just remember reading that he had seen maybe orbs and stuff in his home, and his family too, and that'll play into the hitchhiker effect, I think, that we'll talk about later in the song Hitchhiker. We get to 1947 Roswell, July 8th, I believe, Roswell. The Roswell incident. Everybody has a big theory that the atomic bombs are what brought the UFOs in, and I think the UFOs have always been coming. Personally, I think the atomic bomb might have been a fucking beacon that shot up and was like, "Here we are, fully destructive and here for your viewing entertainment." So it's common to hear UFO reports around atomic sites. I think that's important to know. That you do see UFOs around atomic testing ranges and missile silos and such. And there's been history of them turning them on or off, like, the little red button that's supposed to be on the president's desk or something like that. And then it goes to those guys in that room who are like, we gotta turn keys at the same time and speak Hebrew and backwards and to launch a bomb or something like that. Apparently some UFOs were able to bypass that whole system in other countries too, not just the United States. I believe in Russia they've had that same type of activity, turning them on or off. The current state of UFO disclosure. It's a circus, but it's the best circus we've ever had. UFO disclosure has never been easy, but through Tom DeLonge, Lou Elizondo, they got the initial videos out to Congress, out to the American public, that were showing some potentially anomalous activities, particularly relating to the Tic Tac incident in 2004, which I made a whole song about. That would be Spirals on the EP. But some video of some radar data from that was popping up, or like FLIR footage, I guess. But and then you've got organizations like the Galileo Project going, and even NASA's got their own stuff going. There's a lot of countries started their own things up during this whole disclosure. So it's promising. I mean, it's promising in the sense that even if a government doesn't want to disclose something, the number of eyes, telescopes, companies building products to be able to better take video of things that move that fast in the dark, and as everything improves, it'll be too hard to keep it stifled. So I think disclosure's coming one way or the other, whether you believe or don't believe. I think you will find the truth soon enough. The Congress directed the government to create AARO, the All Domain Anomaly Resolution Office. And AARO is being headed by Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick. It is intended to try and sift through the existing data, and I'm not gonna lie, I just have no faith in AARO. You can take that how you want. Everybody's got their own opinions about AARO. But I just have a heart. The problem with AARO is Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick pretends like he's actually legitimately interested in this whole topic, while simultaneously not investigating any of the best leads in the UFO world. And I mean, it does not take a crack investigator to know which cases those are and where that data resides. If modern average amateur UFO investigators can find this stuff, Dr. Kirkpatrick can too. So I'm not sure he's playing for the right team. And that's A-okay, I guess. It's nothing new, we'll say. What have they disclosed and what have they not disclosed? Well, it's tricky, right? Because everything's a word game. And that's what the track Reality Theater, I think, has a lot to do with, is the word games that they play, or even the direct disinformation they attempt to run. They have admitted that there are UFOs in the sky. 100% admitted. They have gone on to say they do not know what they represent, but they know that it is not their technology. So the list then becomes foreign adversaries, unknown natural phenomena, technology. I think there are things that get left off that list often, like potentially religious things. I'll give a quick shout out to my favorite podcast, Weaponized Podcast. It's with Jeremy Corbell and George Knapp. But in one of their more recent episodes, they had Dr. Lakatsky on, who was part of OSAP, which was the government UFO investigation that was kept under wraps. But Lakatsky, in a new book, basically spelled out that the United States government had possession of at least one craft, and they managed to breach the hull of the craft because they're government employees, because they sign non-disclosure agreements, and they have to make sure they're not going to get in trouble for the shit they say. So it gets signed off on by all these different organizations, that the things that they're saying are okay to say. And that's huge. That means it was signed off on by the appropriate agencies, which is why this needs to get bigger and broader and more public, because there's a lot of brilliant minds, there's a lot of scientists, there's a lot of people not being allowed in on this game. And whenever you compartmentalize things into tiny little segments and only let certain people look at it and work on it, progress just doesn't get made. I mean, wow, we're barely further than we were in 1947, and that's a sad truth. But if we opened it up and let our brilliant minds hop onto it, and then instead of destroying the people who do help them, maybe they could start lifting up a bunch of people to get to the bottom of it. And I understand that there's national security fears associated with that sort of thing, blah, blah, blah. I don't think there's any national security implication in saying that
we may not belong. Whatever that means.
Astronauts and aliens swirling through my head again. Hero dose my brain again. I don't give a fuck. Lightened by the medicine, I'm lighter than Edison. I hero dose my head again. I don't give a fuck.
During a 3-year investigation, I found that many pilots have described objects of substance at high speed. One case, pilots reported their plane was buffeted by an object which passed them at 500 miles an hour. Obviously, this was a solid object, and I believe it was from outer space.